We have to review the newspapers.
That's
why we're back.
Yeah.
We'll start with the Daily Graphic.
Sure. Banner headline, NDC presidential primary on hold. Court places injunction. I've got all the details in here. Imani asked Parliament to investigate Unipass deal. Night market booms on Graphic Road. Employers to use Momo to pay SNIT contributions. President meets press today. We're talking about that a lot later. And Daily Graphic has this on the back page. USAID presents Akpini Queen to GHS. Akpini Queen being a pontoon to ferry people across a water body to access better health care. Also, basic sanitation revolving fund launch. That's an interesting one to keep an eye on. I'll also do the Daily Guide and perhaps the Today newspaper as well. Daily Guide's banner headline is NDC race in limbo. There's a picture here of Nuruddin Idrisu, John Mahama and Ekos Pio Gabra. And the sub-headline is Court Slaps Injunction. Details are on pages 3 and 6. We'll share them later. Also, ex-minister sues husband for bigamy. And EC sued over commissioner's age. Yeah, one of the commissioners of the EC apparently is over 60, and a lawsuit has been brought against the EC and the commissioner herself over this matter. We'll talk about it as well. Unipass deal takes off in January. That's how the Daily Guide reports the Unipass matter. I'll just add the Today newspaper, where Ablakwa exposes $12 million embassy building in Norway, is their banner headline. Interesting story that has been evolving over the week so far, and we will certainly touch on that later on the review. Court places injunction on NDC flag bearer election, and 70% of vehicles are unroadworthy. Yeah, I think about 70% of roads are also unvehicle worthy.
Yeah.
But that's the Ghana we live
in. Sometimes you don't always need machines to get to know that some cars
just should not be on the road.
Are really just not fit to be on a particular road, if not all roads. Yeah.
Well, all right, there we go.
So let's do a couple of the other stories we have. So we have the Ghanaian Times has on the front page, GRI, that's Ghana Integrity Initiative, takes government to task over corruption investigations. Lead story, the Ghanaian Times. Court places injunction on NDC presidential primary, also on page 11 of the Ghanaian Times. And then we have don't ignore digital age disruption. Well, that's according to President. And this one was coined from his speech, or being reported from Austria, where he's gone visiting, participating in the forum, the Africa-Europe High-Level Forum taking place in the Austrian city of Vienna, Austria. But let's go. Front page of the Daily Dispatch newspaper. MP condemns Ayoko Botwe's behavior. The story is on page 2 of the Dispatch newspaper. The main story occupying the front page of the Dispatch is NDC 2020 flag bearer slot. The final 7. Will JDM maintain his 65% lead? Well, he got there last time around. I have pictures there of a couple of the aspirants. We have Sylvester Mensah, Nuruddin Idrisu, Alban Gbagbin, Ekos Pio Gabra, Guzi Tano, Joshua Alabi, and of course, John Dramani Mahama. Chief Imam commends Jospon for work in Ghana. Nana Baumia Association makes donation. Sounds quite interesting, just in case you don't know. As I move on to the finder, let me just apprise you of what the Nana Baumia Association is all about. Nana Baumia Association, formed in Accra about 3 months ago, has made a presentation of educational materials to the Ashaiman Government School.
Nana Baumia Association.
Yeah,
what do they do? What does this association?
One of those patronizing groups. Anyway.
Well,
let's move on.
Thank you for your donation.
Freedom of association. guaranteed by the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. That's a good thing about the thing that we can do in our country.
Yes, indeed.
Everything is free. Now, the Finder newspaper, Otumfo Togbui Sri Revive Bond, emphasize peace, unity, and development. It's a good one there. I was watching a couple of the videos from the event. Online lessons for SHS students take off. Injunction hits NDC presidential primaries. USAID gives Volta region boats to increase access to health services. Ghana has everything it takes to do without an IMF program. IMF boss. If you think we don't have, just look at the Lebanese, the Chinese, the Nigerians, and the rest who are in Ghana making lots of money. You get to know that we have everything. Coupled with, of course, the chop, the money that goes down the drain due to mismanagement in the governance circles. Okay, so in a pick you have.
All right. Well, there's one story that is in several of the papers, and this is about the injunction placed on the NDC presidential primaries. So basically, two individuals, Mr. Abdallah Issa and James Kabunate Oman, who are branch communications manager and branch secretary, respectively, for the Botiano-Nglishi Amanfro constituency of the NDC, have sued the party over some of its decisions, including the eligibility criteria of applicants. So they've listed a number of things, but the court has basically decided that an injunction will be placed. I'm guessing the court feels that if the party is to proceed with the presidential primary elections before this matter is resolved, and it turns out that those who are suing had a case, then they would have suffered irreparable losses. And so to prevent that, they are seeking to injunct the process. The court said, and I quote, the defendant/respondent, their committees, agents, private servants, or authorized bodies, and all persons acting through them be restrained from proceeding with the NDC 2019 presidential election in the manner outlined in the guidelines as amended or at all until the final determination of the suit. This injunction will last for 10 days, after which the defendants will be served notice to show why the injunction should be extended or not be extended. Yeah, so there you go. And this is an interesting one, obviously, but it's good to test our, our laws.
We need to test. The thing is, that's why the laws and the courts really are available for seeking redress. And if you tend to have anything you're not sure of, then you have to go test it in the court of law or use the structures we have as approved also by the Constitution to make sure that all your concerns are well addressed. I think it's well in place. If you speak to a number of the personalities, of course, beyond the JDM camp, they get to tell you that it looks like even from this Friday or this Saturday till the time that we hit January 2, it looks like it's a holiday period. Within that period, when are you going to interact with? Who are you going to interact with? Who have been targeted as the electoral college or delegates for you to be persuasive in your messages and at which point in time? So I think we have to test the law. The 2020 election is not now. We tend to use a lot of years and months to campaign. In the UK, they just have a certain period of about 3 months to do comprehensive campaigning to convince people, and they seem to be well interested enough. So I don't think they need 2 years.
I was thinking this would buy some time for the candidates to feel that, but then I wonder, are they allowed to campaign in the face of this injunction?
Well, it depends on what we mean by campaigning, because, as practiced by the UK and elsewhere,
the injunction is on the party, right?
Yes, on the party. But are the individuals expected to still go around? Yes. So you can still go around. The thing is, we have very informal means by which you can do some engagements. And you can engage people, by the way, that is allowed by the structures of the party and its constitution and guidelines. And you can do that. Of course, you're not oblivious of the injunction, but then the executive have to deal with all the concerns that have been raised.
Now, the big one I'd like us to talk about is this 12 million embassy building in Norway. But just before that, a bit of detail on this story. The EC being sued over the age of one of the commissioners. The commissioner in question is Hajia Saadatu Maida, and she's being sued by Boachia Sumening Teria of Parakou Estates in Accra. And also the EC itself is being sued. And the plaintiff is saying that, look, by virtue of the member's date of birth, which is 5th of June 1958, as appears on her SNIT records, he has attained the age of 60 and above. So the plaintiff basically wants a declaration that, look, she should proceed on compulsory retirement 14 days after the final determination of the suit, and also that any money paid to her by the EC from the 5th of June to the date of final determination of the suit by the court should be refunded to the state, including interest. That's an interesting one. Refunded by who?
Yes.
To the state.
Okay.
We also
do know that the Civil Service Act gives room for extension of or contract to be given to those who have reached the age of 60 but need to be engaged to work with the public service. So perhaps if that clause or that regulation is triggered, it will also give some leeway to maybe the Council of the Electoral Commission or the Attorney General, if that's the body that's supposed to look at the legalities as far as this very petition is concerned. And that could take care of this because we have it in many of the public service agencies in which we've had extension beyond the 60-year age limit. So that could take care of it. There's not been precedent, though, in which we've had a 60-year-old continue in office as a deputy commissioner, but then it doesn't preclude the situation as well.
Right.
So, yeah, so I think that sort of scenario could play in this narrative as well.
Okay, well, the Today newspaper has the banner headline, Ablakwa exposes $12 million embassy building in Norway. And, of course, this drama started to unfold way back on Monday. We saw the altercation in Parliament when the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Shera Yokobuchi, was engaged in some sort of, shall we say, confrontation with Okudzeto Ablakwa, which then spilled over to Sam George and so forth. But now the details have started to emerge, and we're starting to appreciate what exactly the opposition is alleging. And what they are suggesting is that the Foreign Affairs Ministry presented documents to the Parliamentary Committee suggesting that they were going to buy this property for $12 million. But they found that it actually was bought. That same property was sold for $3 million just last year. Okay.
And as a result of that, we'll bring you an insight or two from the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Okudzeto Ablakwa. And Joseph Gakpo was there to cover this for us. So let's get some of those insights.
We make the following demands. The minority demands evidence of the minister's purported 12 December letter. We want to see that letter. 2, we demand to see the response of the parties copied in that letter. Because as we have pointed out to you, the seller of the property has an agreement which we have tendered in evidence before you, and Ghana made some demands on the seller, and the seller proceeded to carry out those demands. Contractors are on site. I don't believe that the seller is Father Christmas. So we want to see the response. Maybe the seller is so forgiving, and so we'll just say, okay, we hear you, we walk out, go and say no more. So we will not charge you for all the costs incurred. We want to see the response. Now, we also demand to know the full liabilities, because paragraph 419 of the budget says that this embassy has already been established. Our checks indicate that there is an officer of the foreign ministry who has been stationed there, who has been working, and who has been really spearheading these transactions. We do not want to mention her name for now. She's a lady. I'm not sure that she's also doing all of this at her own expense, no matter how patriotic and how she loves Ghana. I mean, she has to be catered for. We are also demanding a full probe into this entire saga. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we know, is in Vienna, Austria, but he returns tonight. When he returns, we want to hear from him. Because this whole decision to open an embassy in Norway, the decision came from the president, and there was a cabinet approval. We do not know to what extent cabinet and the president is aware of all the documentation brought to us. Before you bring us documents, all of these inflated figures, it should have gone through some due diligence within the executive. Parliament is not a dumping ground where you come and dump all these documents for approval, and then you say that you have only gone to express interest, that you didn't really mean the approval that you were seeking from Parliament. We want to know, to what extent is the president aware of this transaction? And he must speak to this matter.
Quite interesting there.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. I mean, what are your impressions on this one?
You know, the matter started unfolding 3 days ago. And according to the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, of course, who usually, per all the norms of Parliament, will be an MPP person, there seemed to be some agreement between the minority and the majority side on the committee that something untoward, or perhaps maybe better clarification, needed to be given to that side of the information that has been given to them about a chancery that is supposed to be all for Ghana to serve the Scandinavians, and it will include Iceland as well. What they were not sure of, or they had not agreed for the ranking member to, on the floor of Parliament or the plenary when the report was being approved, to also bring this one in, because they had agreed that the minister had been written to. The minister said a response will be gotten. I don't think this information they shared yesterday, they didn't have it 3 days ago, because perhaps maybe the minority had foreseen that there could be some denial if the whole information was brought that very day. So perhaps maybe the foreign ministry should have had a lot more foresight, knowing that maybe the people had too much information than initially they thought. Because so if you tend to look at the narratives from the information ministry, it looks like they seem to be contradicting what may have been said the first day, just yesterday as well, and today I don't know what would have been said. Yeah,
I mean, for me, the order, like you're pointing out, I mean, the order in which things happen is interesting. First of all, the committee deliberated on the documentation that the foreign ministry presented to them.
Exactly.
They looked through it and thought, like you said, both sides, majority and minority members on the committee looked at it and thought, okay, this doesn't add up. This property was sold just last year for $3 million. Why are we buying it for $12 million? So they decided to look into it. Not only did they write to the foreign ministry, but of course the minority members of the committee did their own checks. they discovered that a news article had been written in Oslo highlighting this same discrepancy. They also checked all the charges that were outlined by the Foreign Ministry to be necessary for the sale to go ahead, the taxes and duties that were to be paid. And they noticed more discrepancies. One of the main taxes that was to be paid, they realized after checking with Oslo that it's actually a fixed amount, much lower than the amount being quoted by the Foreign Ministry. Then they noted that the Foreign Ministry was also quoting other charges which do not even apply to this particular sale. But they were saying they will go and pay those charges. So you see, that immediately removes some of the suspicion from the seller, you know, to the potential buyer. Because some of these things don't even apply, but they are being inserted into the report that they sent to Parliament. Now, after the altercation, the Foreign Ministry's defense, this is where things started getting problematic. The Foreign Ministry's defense was that, oh, look, first of all, what's the big deal? Nobody has signed a contract. Nobody has paid any money. So the state has lost no money. So there's no wrongdoing here. You can't accuse us of anything. Nobody has spent money, nothing. We noticed on the 12th of this month that there was an article throwing some questions or casting a shadow over what we were seeking to do. So immediately we ceased all proceedings. But my questions then arise from this, you know. First of all, if that's what happened on the 12th of this month, today is what, the 19th, why didn't the Foreign Affairs Ministry inform Parliament that they had cancelled this deal?
As a committee.
Yes. Why didn't they inform the committee that, oh, look, we've noticed that there's something wrong here, so we've cancelled it? Why not? Secondly, if indeed you cancelled it on the 12th, how do we explain these videos that the minority is showing of people working there even after the 12th? Now, I have to say, it's important for us to say we haven't independently verified these videos as a media house. And
we also have to say that everything we're talking about is from the point of view of the minority.
In fact, of both of them, because we are also sharing the point of view of the Foreign Affairs Ministry.
As well.
So we are basically putting their points of view next to each other to assess
we're not saying the minority is wrong. We're not saying the Foreign Affairs Ministry is wrong.
We are not yet in a position.
We're just looking at the way the issues have been per the narratives.
Indeed, indeed, that is all. And we are raising questions. That's what we do. So these are questions. You know, why did the Foreign Affairs Ministry not inform the parliamentary committee that they had cancelled the arrangement on the 12th? And if they had cancelled the arrangement on the 12th, what is their explanation of the videos that the minority have put out? Do they deny the validity of these videos? Are they saying that these videos are not accurate? Or perhaps are they for a different timeline? If somebody goes today, what will they find at this property, you know? So for me, these are the questions. These are the questions. And it was unfortunate. I listened to the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister on Top Story yesterday. And he made a suggestion that, oh, well, you know, we didn't go and seek approval from the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Because the money from which they were expending this was a loan. That
yes. So they didn't go and seek approval, which is unfortunate. Because, as you heard Samuel Kujeto Ablakwa say, in chapter 419, it's an unfortunate number, 419, of the budget, this is there. It's there. So you are actually seeking approval of Parliament, because the budget must be approved by Parliament.
On a whole expenditure for the ministry.
So it was unfortunate to hear that.
Yeah, and we again have to reiterate that in crisis management, or in trying to respond to concerns that have been raised by people, whether it's the media or it's also the minority in the political structure like the legislature, you need to get your facts right. Then you lay it out from the onset. The thing is, it looks like the Foreign Affairs Ministry or the minister did not see this coming. Yeah. So the narratives and the content of the narratives have been inconsistent. And if you do that, it means that you're going to find yourself in the difficulties or the doldrums.
I want to read to you, okay, yes, when you're done.
Yes, and if you look at the narrative also from the minority, the video, the people who were sent to go and take the video, the workers, I'm sure mainly will be white, because Norway doesn't have a large African migrant population.
That's right.
We're assuming that those who came were from the foreign ministry. So they were given access, allowed, etc.
And but in fact, they had a conversation with them.
There's nothing that precludes the minority from going covertly or overtly to go and get information to buttress their point. And two, if you look at the contents of the agreement that that had been proposed to the Foreign Affairs Ministry, in November, the ministry, or as a representative of the government of Ghana, had 7 days to agree to take on that sale. And that has since elapsed.
So how did they keep the deal alive?
Up to December even 12th.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So that's the inconsistency.
Yeah.
You wanted
to go for sports now, but it wouldn't be fair if I don't read the statement which the foreign minister presented on the floor of Parliament. It's not very long. It says, Mr. Speaker, I have taken note of all the issues that have been raised, and as a minister, I take responsibility for everything that is done in the ministry under my watch. Mr. Speaker, I would like to state this on record, that I will not superintend over any act of corruption or wrongdoing or outrageous inflation of figures or fraudulent activities that will end in the loss of funds to the ministry and by extension the state. Well, I wonder what she would have done if she hadn't heard of that article written in Oslo. But it's time now for us to do sports, and Benedict and the team are here. They're ready, they're poised. They've got the headlines after these.